Hello ladies and Mental Chain, and welcome to another tank review. Today we are looking at the Spähpanzer 1C, the German tier 7 light tank. So tier 7 light tanks have always been the tier in the class that has been extremely poorly balanced, with American light tanks being way ahead of everything else in the tier. After the T-71 got changed to an HD model, now it looks like something that comes out of dog's ass. And it got nerfed pretty significantly as well with gun depression and things. So the Bulldog now is at the top dog at tier 7. You see what I did there? Bulldog, top dog. So clever. So let's see how the Spähpanzer fares against the Bulldog and the T-71 and the rest of the junk that is tier 7 light tanks. So first of all, there's no armor to talk about because it's a light tank. They don't have any armor. But as always, before the game starts, let's look at some of the stats. So 880 hit points, pretty healthy, still not as healthy as, for instance, the WZ-131. The speed limit forwards 58, it's below average, I would say. Speed limit backwards 22, again below average. Load limit 10 tons, never ever ram anything with this. This is probably the lightest vehicle you'll find until like tier 3, so don't bother to ram anything with this. The armor is 10 all around and 15 in the front, so maybe a little tractor might find it tricky to pen you if you angle well, but other than that, don't expect anything to bounce off this little turd. You have a 195 horsepower engine. My Honda has more. I don't have a Honda, so no, I cry every time. Horsepower to weight ratio 20.53 tons, making it one of the slowest tier 7 light tanks as well. Traverse speed 44, pretty bad for a light tank. Terrain resistance, again the worst at the tier. So the tank, as you can see, is not very maneuverable and mobile. View range 400 meters, what you would expect. Turret traverse 44 degrees, better than on the T-71 actually nowadays. When we come to the gun, it pretty much has the same gun as the RU-251. I prefer the auto-loading version for the reasons I'm gonna disclose later in this video, but 240 damage, 180 penetration. You don't have the nice HE penetration of the RU, so that is only 45. Shell velocity is really poor with 630 meters per second compared to the WZ's 131 gun that shoots AP as standard. The 85mm gun has 860 meters a second, and the T-71 APCR is 1200, which is double the shell velocity of this thing. So leading shots can be really tricky with this. But yeah, I'm using the autoloader 3-shot magazine size reload between shots 3 seconds. With a decent crew and some basic equipment, the reload of the magazine is going to be around 14 seconds. So the DPM, while not being as good as without the autoloader gives you a huge advantage that you should usually try to take advantage of. Accuracy 0.38, aiming time 2.4. Again, subpar stats here pretty much. The accuracy isn't too bad, but the aiming time is pretty piss poor for a tank that is that has such shitty shell velocity. So far in this game, you can see that autoloader gave me favorable trades all around the place. 730 damage in the RU that you loaded at the start. Did manage to pen 2 on the KV-3, and now killed the Indian Panzer as well. And like, it's not too bad to have this autoloader. You tend to move around and not be constantly engaging in tanks like this anyway, so while you're moving around, this reload doesn't really hurt you at all. So it is, in my opinion, much better to have the autoloader, not just because the autoloader isn't too bad, just because the autoloader gives you a huge advantage over people that are not using the autoloader. I mean, I would never have shot this guy 3 times if I didn't have the autoloader, and it works like that all the way around. The Waffle has the 15 centimeters, so I really have to be careful. And again, I unload my magazine and I'm able to drive around and reload without any troubles here. So one thing I need to say before we get any deeper in this review is, if you do like to do useless light tank things like passive scouting and scouting in general, this isn't really the tank you want to choose. It's slow, it probably has a pretty decent camo value, but the fact that it's slow, it has bad traverses, it's not really favorable to really do things like spotting and passive things. Like, just use the autoloader and do damage is pretty much how you have to play this game nowadays anyways, regardless of what tank or class you are playing. And that's one of the main reasons to use the autoloader. The gun without an autoloader is going to be better at long range, but this tank at long range is going to be terrible either way because of how bad the shell velocity is. You can't really shoot or use this tank at any long ranges. That was a pretty poor aim there. But I do set him on fire with a second shot, so it wasn't too bad in general. No shot on the Tiger misses completely. The only kind of tank I wouldn't recommend you to use an autoloader is a tank that standard gun has already ridiculous rate of fire, and this is not the case here. Without an autoloader, this gun has like 7-second reload, which makes the DPM without an autoloader just slightly better than the one with the autoloader, so it's not really that big of a deal. And I would agree that if you fight at long range, this autoloader is pretty damn useless, but then again, this tank is pretty damn useless at fighting long range anyways. So the equipment I would use on this tank is optics, ventilation, and vert stab if you can use one. I don't actually remember. If it's not vert stab, then it's gun length drive. Either one of those, the one you can use. If you can use vert stab, then you use vert stab. If you cannot, then you use gun length drive. And now flanking the IS-3, as of recent buff, you cannot pen these things frontally anymore with the less than 190, 200 penetration, so I'm not even going to bother to shoot that frontally. Do set him on fire with one shot, which is nice, but yeah, completely mind-bogglingly retarded buff to an IS-3. I don't know what the fuck is Wargaming thinking, but I guess they're just thinking about money when they do buff tanks like the IS-3. But at the same time, we kind of should be used to it already with a completely unnecessary IS-7 buff, and now completely unnecessary T110E5 buff, and completely unnecessary Conqueror buff, and yeah, things like that. But hey, we have Chinese tanks in the game. Fuck those, right? Nobody cares. Whatever. Now, the last one we won here. The only thing you can ram is another Spähpanzer, and that's what I do, and pick up the 4th kill of the game, so that's my game over now. And here's the end plate, 4,182 damage done, 81 spotting, because spotting, boys and girls, is really important in World of Tanks. Like, absolutely nobody gives a single fuck about that, so we didn't either. Ace tanker and high caliber in a tier fucking 7 light tank in tier 9 game as well. 1,586 base experience, 4 kills, and yeah, that's pretty much my game. To sum this up, is it a good light tank? For light tank purposes, no, not at all. It's terrible at it. Is it a good light tank for doing damage purposes? It's alright. It's still worse than both the T-71 and the Bulldog, so it doesn't really shift the balance of the tier 7 light tanks all around that much. But it's not the worst tank I've ever played, and it's not the worst light tank at tier 7 either, so it's alright. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I will see you on the next one.